Hi, Caitlin. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Well, thanks for coming in today. It's really nice to see you again. And so last week we were talking about some of the ways that our thoughts can affect our feelings.
yeah.
And I wanted to do a little bit more of that with you today. Does
Okay.
that sound okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds alright.
So what's been going on this week? Is there a situation that really got you down? That's really pressing on you?
Yeah, something sticks out about this weekend. One of my best friends from college was in town, and she told me about it like a while ago. She told me she was coming into New York for the weekend, and like we had made plans to see each other on Saturday, and like by the time Saturday rolled around, like I was just exhausted and like didn't want to leave my apartment, like barely wanted to get out of bed, and I think I was just kind of like embarrassed. I didn't really want her to see me depressed, and so she was texting me and I just didn't respond.
Okay.
And then I felt pretty bad about that because I basically just blew her off and like with no explanation, and she was texting me and she called me once and I just didn't answer, and felt pretty awful about that.
Yeah, so you just kind of didn't have the energy to respond to her, and it's got you pretty down. And so what were some of the thoughts that were kind of going through your mind while this situation was going on? While you weren't able to respond.
I think I just felt like such a terrible friend, and like I felt like I'm just pushing everybody away, and nobody like is gonna want to be in my life anymore. Everybody that I care about is just gonna leave because I'm like I'm terrible. I'm just blowing them off, and I'm not like being a good friend, and why would anybody want to like keep calling me if I'm like just gonna ignore them,
Right. And so as you were thinking about these things, how was your mood getting?
Pretty terrible. Yeah, I think the more that I was like thinking about how terrible I am, like the more the like more depressed I felt.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you see how these are some of the ways that our thoughts can affect our feelings and our moods? So as the situation was going on and you were thinking these thoughts about how you're not a good friend, you're not gonna people aren't gonna want to spend time with you, it was making your mood even worse. You're feeling even more down, and this is something that can happen with depression. As you're kind of thinking these negative thoughts, it's making you feel worse. And so do you see that kind of connection between our thoughts and our feelings and our mood, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's something I want to explore a little bit more with you today, and so we're gonna fill this out together. It's called a thought record, and it's just a way to really see what's going on, and figure out the evidence that might be supporting or not supporting our not so great thoughts. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to write down the situation that you were describing.
Okay, so friend came into town and I ignored her calls and texts.
Okay, so your friend came into town, you ignored her calls and texts. Can you describe some of the moods that you were feeling while this situation was going on?
Yeah, I felt a lot of shame, and like I felt bad, just like I don't know if being a bad person is a mood, but I felt bad. I felt depressed,
Yeah.
Bad and depressed.
Feeling bad, yeah.
And shame and depressed and bad.
Okay. And so now I'm going to ask you to do is to kind of rate these moods. So from like 0 to 100%, what percentage of an intensity were you experiencing with each of these moods?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was feeling pretty shameful, like 90. And bad, like, yeah, also maybe like 95 even,
Okay.
and depressed like 90.
Yeah, so you're feeling pretty down.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna ask you to identify, just like we were talking about, some of the
Mhm.
thoughts that were coming to mind. And we refer to these thoughts as automatic thoughts.
Mhm.
And they're thoughts that you're not controlling, you're not trying to have them. And sometimes they're not even always true.
Yeah.
But they're the things that are just kind of like popping into your mind that are contributing to your moods.
Yeah.
So can you write down some of those automatic thoughts that you were having?
Yeah.
I heard you say a few before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember, like, I'm a terrible friend. I'm a bad person. And, like,
I also heard you say, people aren't going to want to spend time with you
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna lose everybody in my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is great. So the next thing that I'm gonna ask you to do is to identify the automatic thought that was really pressing, that was at the forefront of your mind. They call it on here a hot thought. What's the thought that was really most pervasive?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of them were pretty bad.
Yeah.
Made me feel pretty bad, but I don't know. I think this thought that, like, I'm gonna lose everybody, like, is really probably the most painful, I think.
Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna ask you to go ahead and circle that one.
Okay.
And we're gonna go to the next column here and ask you to come up with some evidence that supports that thought.
Okay.
So what's some evidence you can think of that supports, that you're gonna lose people in your life?
Yeah, I think, my friends don't call me as much anymore. I don't try as hard. My friends don't call as much. I think and, like, they tell me that it's hard for them.
Okay. Yeah, it's a difficult situation for them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm gonna ask you to kind of like think on the other side. What's some evidence that does not support this thought? That doesn't support you're gonna lose people. On the opposite side shows that you're gonna keep some people in your life.
Yeah, I mean, they told me it's hard, but, like, they've also told me that, like, they're still gonna love me no matter what.
Yeah, that's a great piece of evidence.
And I think they, and, like, even though they don't call as much, like, they still do make an effort. Like, they still invite me to do things or, like, check in on me.
Yeah, definitely. So they're checking in. They're still inviting you.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really great, Caitlin. So now what I'm going to ask you to do is to kind of look at both pieces of evidence here. That your friends don't call as much. They tell you it's hard for them, but also they tell you that they still love you and that they're still checking in on you sometimes and inviting you out.
Yeah.
And see if you can kind of come up with an alternative way of thinking about this situation, and kind of a little bit more of a balanced thought for this feeling of that you're gonna lose everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one way of thinking about it is, like, they know that I'm going through a hard time, and, like, they're understanding of that, and, like, even though it's hard for them, like, they tell me that they're always gonna be there.
Yeah, definitely. recognizing that it's a difficult time for you, but they still love you and they still are gonna be there for you. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now looking at this alternative thought, I'm gonna ask you to go back to your moods and re-rate them,
Okay.
and see if you're feeling maybe a little bit differently about them now, and if you're having any new moods that's come up for you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think shame. I mean, I'm still feeling kind of a lot of, pretty ashamed. I feel like I need to reach out to my friend and like apologize, but yeah, maybe like an 85. And I'm still feeling, pretty bad, but I don't know, maybe a 90 now.
Okay, so a little bit less.
And depressed. Actually, I think I'm feeling like an 80 for bad.
Okay.
And depressed more like a 70, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So you did a really, really nice job with this. And so can you kind of see how we can form these alternative, more balanced thoughts?
Yeah.
So so we went through, what were the things that you were thinking about when you were going through this difficult situation, and the things that support it, and the things that don't support that thought.
Yeah.
Coming up with something a bit more balanced.
Yeah.
Seems like it made you feel a little bit better over here.
Yeah, I think so.
And so I'm going to assign you a little bit of homework to, I'm going to give you one of these sheets, and maybe at some point throughout the week when you're having some of these automatic thoughts and, going through a tough situation with your depression, you can, fill this out on your own and bring it back, and we can talk about it
Yeah, I think I
next
could
week.
do that.
Does that sounds okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so I just want to know from you, is there anything in our session that, didn't work for you, or that you'd like to do a little bit differently next time?
No, I think this was pretty good. I kind of liked going through this and just considering these thoughts that I have in a new way. I think that was pretty helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll send you home with this, and then we'll go through another situation next week, and really try to form those more balanced thoughts.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.